take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago. Draws nearer. I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Be viewing Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Be viewing Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Be viewing Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Reviewing Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Reviewing Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
As the election draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Be viewing Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.
Draws nearer, I want to remind you, sisters, take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station.
Pleasant night to each and everyone. Mr. Khan, Ms. Olivera, Mr. Jeffrey. A pleasant night, ladies and gentlemen. We know without God nothing is possible. So I would ask you to bow your heads and in seriousness, because we need deliverance. And when we
give her a resounding endorsement that will vote for her come September the 8th, 2015. My dear brothers and sisters, come September the 7th is a real critical time. And I want you to listen to me very carefully. If your name is not on the voters list, please check it. Because by the 23rd of July, angry you are. If your name not on the voters list, you cannot vote September the 7th. So I beg you, don't only be angry. I ask you to go and check the electoral list to make sure your name is there, so that come September the 7th, you can exercise your franchise. I have been at pains on my Facebook page every week, begging you, asking you to check the electoral list and make sure your name is on the list. I want to urge you as well. I'm nothing hard, but listen to this. I understand from reliable sources that plans are afoot by this UNC-led administration to entice voters to collect $200, in some cases $500, in some cases $1,000, and in some cases $5,000 after dipping their index finger the day before the general election, so that on election day you will not be able to vote because your finger would have been stained. I ask you, I beg you, don't sell your birthright. Don't sell your children's future. Tell them, no, you ain't doing that. Money, but you're not dipping your finger in no ink. Only on September the 7th, we are going to vote for the People's National Movement. We are going to vote for Dr. Keith. We are going to vote for Nicole Olivier. We are going to vote for Brigadier Edmond Dillon. My dear brothers and sisters, have to understand that this country is in a real mess. Real mess. Do you know that they have a study for the 20 most homicidal countries in the world? The most homicidal countries in the world. In 2012, Trinidad and Tobago was ranked 12th in the world. In 2013, we were ranked 10th. So we are the 10th most dangerous place in the world to live, my brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters, we also know too well that murders in Trinidad are not being solved very easily. Under the PNM, my dear brothers and sisters, I can show you that in 2009, the detection rate was 26.8% in 2009. In 2010, when the UNC came in, it was 22.8%. By 2011, under the UNC, Kamal Prasad, Mr. Sir, 21.9%. In 2012, under the People's Partnership, it was 16.6%. In 2013, under this People's Partnership government, it was 3%. My dear brothers and sisters, it means that for every 100 murders committed in this country, only 3 are being solved. How could we vote for Kamala and them for the next 5 years? Can't make that. Can't make that. Cannot make that at all. My dear brothers and sisters, we were told long ago that the murders in this country are committed by guns, used by guns. But these guns are not made in Trinidad and Tobago. They come from outside. And our People's National Movement government decided to cramp down on the importation of these illegal guns. So we talk about the OPVs, the offshore patrol vessels and so on, the fast craft and so on, to block those who are coming from outside. In came this government, and what they did? They stopped, they canceled the OPVs. And therefore our borders were left unprotected. What is the result? The result is guns and drugs are coming in free shoot. Guns and drugs are coming into this country free shoot. To the extent that right now we have guns from Russia. We have guns like the Remington rifle that could shoot someone 3,000 meters away. It means, my dear brothers and sisters, we are in dangerous time. And so I beg you tonight, vote for your country. Vote for the People's National Movement. Vote for your children. And come September the 8th, we'll be saying, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is PNM, and shall be.
I am a mountain. I am a tall. Oh, I am a swift wind. Sweeping.
Put your hands together one more time for your very own Gerald Jeffries. Show him your love. Show him your appreciation for his service over the last 5 years. My friends, for youth development, the UNC gave you live sport. But the People's National Movement gave you many successful youth programs, including YTEP, OJT, and of course GATE. The opportunities for young people today were all built on the foundation of the People's National Movement youth policies and philosophy. Our next speaker represents youth. He is a political activist in the Brea constituency. He holds an associate degree in occupational health, safety, and the environment, and is currently pursuing a diploma in theology. Welcome a son of the soil, Derek Bellowin.
I am a tall tree, oh, I am a swift wind, sweeping the country. I am a river down in the valley, oh, I am a vision.
Brea, are you ready? Brea, are you ready? Young people, are you ready? Miss Nicole Olivier, candidate for the Brea constituency and our next member of parliament for Brea. Major General Edmund Dillon, candidate for Point Fortin and the next member of parliament for Point Fortin. Assistant Secretary of the People's National Movement, Mr. Duki. Present Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, Ms. Paula Gopi-Skoon. Chairman of the People's National Movement, Mr. Franklin Khan. Last but not least, a man that will lead the PNM Army to victory come September the 7th. The man who has stood as a democratic society and the man that will be the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He is none other.
Ladies and gentlemen, we pause as we welcome the political leader of the People's National Movement. With faith and prayer, your support, the next Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley as he makes his way on stage. A man of distinction, a loyal servant, a committed worker, your chief servant of the movement. Welcome Dr. Rowley as he makes his way on the platform one more time at the spear. Welcome your political leader and next Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley.
All right. Again, the man that will lead the PNM Army to victory come September the 7th. The man who has stood as a defender of our democratic society and the man that will be the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He is none other than the leader of the most solid and progressive political institution, the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement. To my fellow constituents, especially the young men and women of this constituency, who have grown weary and given up hope that there will be a political entity that would be there to genuinely service the needs of the community, who have grown weary of hearing promises that have never materialized. Those of you who believe that as a constituency, we the people of Brea have been neglected by this PP administration. The last MP tried that was kept, that if we Brea vote PNM, nothing for we. We must never forget the lies and hypocrisy of this PP government when they promised to replace the smelter with recycling plant. That 5 years later is yet not materialized. But I say to you, have no fear. The PNM, Dr. Keith Rowley, changed the way we are represented, here to work tirelessly on your behalf. You see, the People's National Movement is a political institution founded upon democratic principles, basic human rights and dignity, and dedicated to raising of moral and material standards of citizens of this country. Dr. Keith Rowley has demonstrated that he possesses the integrity, the tenacity from efforts and policies by the People's National Movement to ensure the development of young people across our country. The free tertiary learning environment created by PNM is unequaled anywhere in the world and has made the pursuit of tertiary education in Trinidad and Tobago attractive, accessible, and affordable. It was because of them opening the gate and the higher education loan program that not only myself, but the members of my family were able to access the very costly tertiary education and opportunities to improve the quality of our lives, thereby climbing the social ladder. The PNM administration has continually introduced programs like MUST, HYPE, OJT, NESE, and even UTT. Yes, all of which were PNM bred. That would allow youth opportunities to excel different capacities. Young people now have the opportunity to study whatever they like, from law to medicine to fashion design and arts. The PNM has held to the legacy set by Dr. Eric Williams when he stated, "Your future lies in your school bags." But apart from education, the PNM is the ones responsible for many social programs, such as the Titi food cards for low-income owners who have struggled to make ends meet, housing grant, disability grant, self-help, free textbook for primary and secondary school students, CDAP, and many others. It is because of these national policies that I cannot turn my back on the People's National Movement. And you shouldn't either. At least not for this PP government that has only managed to successfully create scandal after scandals. From Reshmi to fake papers to live sport, all of which not even Olivia Pope could solve. Fix it, Jesus. They have given credibility to the statement, "We hang the petty thieves and appoint the great ones to public office." But come September 7th, that should be no more. People of Brea, the PNM has given us a candidate who beams with passion and enthusiasm. What has captivated me most about her is the way she listens and takes every criticism and advice into consideration. Her drive to see Brea develop and get its fair share of the national pie. She said to me, when I approached her about Brea Youth League, she said, "Derek, whatever the youths wants to organize, they have my full support, and just notify me and when." Isn't that who we want as a representative? Having confidence in youth abilities makes her the perfect candidate to our next generation forward. At every turn, young people of this constituency have sent a message. To organize. We have sent a message that this country does not value them and their government will not lift a finger to help them achieve their potential. But Ms. Nicole Olivier our next member of parliament, in keeping with the vision of the People's National Movement, would seek to ensure that the young people of Brea are trained and ready to function in Brea, the next industrial capital of Trinidad. Amen. She said she was seeking a technical training institute that will be brought on stream to prepare the youths for employment in the industry. Too long, the youths of Brea have been labeled as incompetent or uneducated or simply not drug-free. Stigmas that are absolutely untrue. Her vision also extends beyond economic climate into recognizing and embracing sport as a powerful tool for deepening community spirit and national pride, creating viable business. By constructing sporting facilities in Brea, youths will have to access to an environment that really fosters the development of the sporting talents here in Brea. So I appeal to my young people and to the community of Brea. Don't allow us to be deceived by the rising sun that only leaves us to burn and get heat stroke, or even the Green Lantern parade as a anti when they are responsible for its destruction in the first place. We cannot allow our country to be governed by a government with no moral authority, a government whose concern lies in raping our treasury and shaming our country on an international scale. They have tainted the positive image. Now we have a chance to set free the shackles of poverty and victimization. It is time to get this right. Come September the 7th, when you cast your vote resounding to the People's National Movement, they go need wings to catch we. As we all will shout graciously from the top of our voice that great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and it shall prevail.
A product of PNM youth policy and initiative. Put your hands together one more time for Mr. Bellowin, doing the youth movement of the PNM proud. My friends, the death of someone or something is always a sad event, but oftentimes it creates the opportunity for the birth of something great in pursuing a higher. Tonight, I have a death announcement to make. I have been asked to announce the death of the United National Congress, also known as the UNC. She was the mother of all lies, mama guys, corruption, deception, greed, and nepotism. She was the grandmother of the late COP, TOP, and NJAC. She was also the great-grandmother of the Third Force and the Alliance of Independence, who are now political orphans. During her life as an inventor, she invented live sport, plant-like substances, and Section 34, which supported her children, including Ish, Steve, and Sis, also known as SIS. During her time of political ailment, prior to her death, she was financially supported by funds from Mr. Jack, and her eldest son, Rudy, and his spouse also received financial assistance. Take note, the funeral service of the late UNC would take place on Monday, September 7th at 6 a.m. at every polling station across Trinidad and Tobago, according to your political rights. She would be cremated with the red fire of the People's National Movement. All citizens who are on the electoral invitation list would be granted 2 hours off from work to attend. And when you attend, cast your ballots with confidence for the People's National Movement. My friends, our next speaker is a stickler for discipline and production, with years of outstanding service in the Defense Force. His leadership and management competencies brought major benefit to the Defense Force and would no doubt bring great value to the next PNM government. In addition to his professional attainments, he has an outstanding academic track record, which is highlighted by postgraduate qualifications, including a Master's of Science degree in International Relations and a Master's of Science degree in Military Arts and Science. Help me welcome to the lectern to address us the next Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, Major General Edmund Dillon, retired.
Better days are coming. Better days are coming. Better days are coming.
Thank you very much, Chairman of the proceedings, Mr. Daniel Duque. Chairman of the People's National Movement, Mr. Franklin Khan. Political leader and the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Deputy political leaders, Mrs. Marlene MacDonald, Mrs. Joe Newell Williams, Mr. Rowan Sinanan, Mr. Orville London, who I'm sure is listening in Tobago. My fellow candidate for Labrie, Ms. Nicole Oliver. The former MP for Labrie, Mr. Fitzgerald Jeffrey. The former MP for Point Fortin, Mrs. Paula Gopi-Schoon. My fellow candidates who I see in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media and the listening public in Trinidad and Tobago, a pleasant good evening to you all. And I want to start off by saying, you know, the chairman just read out a number of qualifications there. But I want to put on the record that the qualifications that I've attained at Vancouver RFC School and West Indies Secondary School and at the University of the West Indies could not have been possible without the foundation, the policy of Dr. Eric Williams and successive PNM government in Trinidad and Tobago. Let us not forget that, ladies and gentlemen, that where we are in our education right now, it is based on PNM's policy. So I want to give thanks and appreciation to that. Allow me, first of all, to give thanks to Almighty God for bringing us safely to Majuba Junction here this evening. And then secondly, I want to give him thanks for all that he has done in my life. I want to thank also the hard-working executive of the Point Fortin constituency. Point Fortin, where are you? And so I also want to thank Mrs. Paula Gopi-Schoon as the outgoing MP for all the hard work and dedication that she has done, and to assure her publicly that I will continue in all that she has done and build on the foundation that she has left. I want to assure each and every one of you that I will do my best and let God do the rest. The demonstrating trust and confidence that you have placed in me, I wish to inform you that I will endeavor to do my best. I will humanly live up to your expectations. This evening, I am indeed pleased to share the podium with my neighbor, my PNM sister, Nicole Oliver. Because you must know that we are twins. In fact, I say we are triplets because we have to include Faizabad, Point Fortin, and Labrie. We're going to make sure that this southwestern area gets what it deserves. Today is a signal honor for me And in fact, I can to address you. I am very elated, excited, and very optimistic that we proceed to shape a new future for Labre, Point Fortin, and Faizabad in particular, but Trinidad in general. At the outset, let me extend my sincerest thanks and appreciation to Dr. Rowley and the screening committee for selecting me as a candidate for Point Fortin. You were informed a while ago, or you may not have been informed, but you should be aware that I grew up at Cochrane Village, Guapo. My father, Edwin Dillon, who is somewhere in the audience, better known as Dutch, was a taxi driver, most people know. My mother, Ivadne Dillon, who is here, she's somewhere in the audience. Both live here at Labre. My grandfather and grandmother, in fact, my grandfather and grandmother on my father's side came from Tobago. All the Tobagonians in the house. And on my mother's side from Grenada, so I'm a combination of both. But I also want to let you know that my grandfather lived 106 years in Cochrane. And my grandmother lived to 97 years. I'm saying that to let you know that I'm a long liver, so PNM, you have me for a long time. My wife grew up with me in Cochrane Village also, and my 3 children, Cleavon, Adisha, and Tony. That's my family. But as I stand here this evening, I remember my days here in Labre coming to spend vacation by my grandmother, playing in what was the best sports field in the West, that Brighton sports field outside there. Those in Labre could say yes. And I remember looking at golf on the golf course. That's no longer there. Those were the days when Labre was Labre. And this is the days that we have to bring back what was meant to Labre in the days gone by. As a child growing up in Cochrane Village, I distinctly remember that in most of the houses, there were 3 items on the wall, ladies and gentlemen. One was the picture of Jesus Christ. Remember the one with the hat? The other, not a picture, but a clipping, because there was newspaper clipping in those days, of Dr. the Right Honorable Williams. The third one was a balize. I wonder if we still have a balize in our houses. We have to bring back those things, ladies and gentlemen, because subliminally, as children, we grew up seeing the balize. It meant something to us. So maybe there are some lessons there. Let us bring the balize back in our house as a symbol that shows strength for the people's national movement. And so it's based on my background growing up in Cochrane Village that has shaped my humility, has shaped my character, that saw me moving from a normal enlisted person in the Defense Force to the highest rank, retiring as the Chief of Defense Staff of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. You know, the Bible tells us in Proverbs 15:33, before honor is humility. And in fact, in 1 Peter 5:5, that God resisted the proud and giveth grace to the humble. So it is therefore with the greatest amount of humility, mutual respect, and dedication I present myself to you this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been a selfless servant of this country for more than 36 years, having enlisted in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force in 1974. And I did that while most of my peers went to university or went and got jobs in the oil industry. I did it because of a commitment to serve. I did it because I wanted to serve in a different capacity. This candidacy is an opportunity for me to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago. From the military, in which I have spent more than half of my life, my experience has been filled with service to others, the soldiers, the airmen, the Coast Guardsmen, and in fact, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is this principle of service which was molded in me when I attended the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. Because at Sandhurst, the motto was serve to. And as young officers, it was inculcated in us that if you are a leader, you must understand that you can only lead because the followers will give you permission to lead. You can't lead if you don't have their permission. And so you must serve to lead. And so it is that motto. It is that motto that enshrined in me in terms of what you call servant leadership. A philosophy that has been practiced at people like Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, and Gandhi, and so on. And it is the same principle that I am going to use, which I have used in the Defense Force, to ensure that the people's national movement move to greater heights and the Point Fortin constituency get what it deserves, ladies and gentlemen. You know, some people ask me, why did you enter into politics? I've retired from the military. They say you could go and play golf or something like that. Some even say, but you're crazy. Why do you want to get into politics at this point in time? I think it's a very simple answer. You see, again, while I was at Sanders, there was a course called Democracy in the Army, Democracy in the Military. It said to us as officers, you must be politically aware. You cannot be politically involved. Because you are there to serve in power, and therefore you must not be politically involved. So for 36 years, I joined no political party. None. But I voted in every election. I exercised my franchise. But having left the military, I asked myself, which party? And I tell you something, I didn't have to take long in wondering which party to join. The answer was, in fact, right at my fingertips, ladies and gentlemen. Very much at my fingertips. Because for me, the only party is the People's National Movement. And then when I look at the state of affairs in my country, that I give 36 years to, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot retire. When I consider the crime situation, I cannot retire. When I consider the breakdown of institutions, I cannot retire. When I consider the cancellation of the offshore patrol vessels, I cannot retire. And I want to digress a bit on the offshore patrol vessels, because under my watch, we made a strategic plan that put forward the offshore patrol vessels. It was not a political decision. It was based on a strategic plan from the Defense Force. When we looked at the environment, it was determined that we need offshore patrol vessels to patrol our waters. I'll tell you why. Because you see, what we don't realize is at the time that we asked for the offshore patrol vessels, the U.S. Junction, which was the shipwrighter's vessel, was pulled out for services in Far East. The UK guard ship that operated in the West Indies was pulled out of the Caribbean. Even the military attaché from back. So there was an absence of assistance from our international partners to deal with our territorial waters. When we look at our maritime security environment, there are 3 tiers. Tier 1, which is from your shoreline to 3 miles. Tier 2 is to 12 miles. And from 12 miles to your territorial waters, the exclusive economic zone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you an analogy. A house on an acre of land, and the house is in the middle of the land, and you want to secure that acre. Where are you going? Near to the house or on the acre on your perimeter land? I can answer you will put it on your perimeter on the acre of land, because if you put it next to your house, you may look the bandit up your steps or through your windows. Put that into perspective, ladies and gentlemen. Our territorial waters is at the 200-mile limit, our exclusive economic. If we have to protect our shores, if we have to protect Trinidad and Tobago, then we must have something outside our 200-mile limit. And the only vessel capable of dealing in the waters outside our 200-mile limit is the offshore patrol vessel, ladies and gentlemen. The offshore patrol vessel. You cannot replace an offshore patrol vessel with any other vessel. Don't be fooled. Anything to replace an offshore patrol vessel must be an offshore patrol vessel, ladies and gentlemen. And the ones that we had was in fact a platform, an all-inclusive platform. Now we are seeing you buying a logistic vessel to support a vessel. The offshore patrol vessel had everything inclusive, a helicopter plan, offshore interceptors, and it was self-contained. It guaranteed 28 days in any 1 month in our coastline, ladies and gentlemen. And let me let you know, the same vessel that was built for us was set Brazil, which is one of the largest countries in South America, bought 3, and in fact, are building 2 more. The Royal Navy, as we speak, and you can check it online, are building based on that same pattern, 2 vessels, 2 offshore patrol vessels for the Royal Navy. So tell me, ladies and gentlemen, what was the problem with the offshore patrol vessels? Over the last 4 years, we were denied the presence out in our territorial waters. What is the response? What is the effect? More guns, more drugs. We are at a crime situation now that we cannot eat, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to share that with you. The next area is, in fact, the National Operations Center. I see now we have a new manager. And let me know, he used to work in SORT, ladies and gentlemen. So here we have SORT. You see what I'm talking about. And the National Operations Center, some people assume that it was a new concept. It wasn't. Let me tell you that during 2009, Cricket World Cup, Summit of the Americas, the National Operations Center was in fact designed at Defense Force Headquarters, where we ran the entire show. Cameron Ross, in his report, said that that should be done at a national level, and is instituted, started under the PNM government, ladies and gentlemen. Not National Operations Center. You can check the records. So let's put it right. It's not a new concept. It isn't something that was new, designed over the last 4 years. It was there since 2009 under the PNM government. So ladies and gentlemen, I can't retire when all these things are going on. I cannot retire when Point 14 is still under a state of underdevelopment. And if I take a page from Black Stalin's book, when he said, wait, Dorothy, wait, let me tell you, I'm going to say, wait, retirement, wait. I'm not going to retire. I'm going to hear people and the country of Trinidad and Tobago. English philosopher Edmund Burke once said, evil flourish when good men fail to act. And US President Obama said, it is not good enough to only have hope and aspirations for oneself, but to provide the same for others. Our esteemed leader, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, has repeatedly called on all right-thinking people to stand up and be counted. Now, do not get me wrong, I'm not perfect. In fact, none of us can make that claim. But I do sincerely believe that I have a contribution to make. It is therefore against this background of humble beginnings, a willingness to serve, a record of achievements, and of course, most importantly, my wife's approval and my children's blessings, that I decided to get into politics. I strongly believe that I can make a difference, utilizing the tools and the gift that the Lord has given to me for the benefit of this country. Having made that decision, as I said before, I turned to the People's National Movement because it was founded on democratic principles, basic human rights and dignity, and dedicated to raising the moral and material standards of the people through the fields of politics, economics, social, cultural, and moral activities. In the PNM, I saw a party with a vision, a party with strong foundation, with structure, and most importantly, a party with visionary, dedicated leadership, led by the indomitable, the industrious, the fearless Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. And for me, Dr. Rowley, at this time in our nation's history, represents the kind of leader that is required to take us out of our present predicament, where our country has moved from, and I put it this way, remember our country moved from colonial status independence through PNM, and then we moved from status to Republican status through PNM. But right now we have moved, and these are my terms, we move from Republican status to what I call special interest system of democracy, ladies and gentlemen, where the special interests are the ones that are taken care of right now. Now you notice, special interest system, take the first letter of each it means, I will say no more. Special interest system of democracy, ladies and gentlemen. Take the first letter of each word, and I'll leave you to interpret that. The PNM for me is the only vehicle that will take us to that new horizon. Therefore, for me, it's a signal honor to join with Nicole to represent the constituency of Brea and Point 14 as the PNM candidates for the next general election. The Bible tells us that without a vision, the people perish. The PNM in its draft policy framework articulated the road ahead to 2030, building a nation together. Joined from this overarching vision at the constituency level, I want to posit that we say a road ahead to 2020, not losing sight of 2030, building a country together. We have to plan for the next 5 years, for 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Our vision must give meaning to our daily routine. Our vision must be different to our reality. It must almost contradict our reality. It must put us at a different place. It must move us from our comfort zone. I urge you, therefore, if we are to move Point 14 and Brea and the wider Trinidad and Tobago from a place of problems to a place of solutions, we have to think and act differently. We have to be futuristic and positive in our thinking. It was noteworthy to mention here that as we go forward, we have to acknowledge our expectation from various governments that have not been fully realized over time. We at Library and Point Fortin has made huge deposits into the political bank account. And I'm saying to you, at the next PNM-led government, I am sure, under the leadership of Dr. Rowley, we're going to get what we deserve, ladies and gentlemen. As I stand here, I say to you, a new dawn is awakening. You will see a morning filled with the illumination of a symbolic red light that shines from the PNM beacon. Well, it's important to look at the past because sometimes you go along and our PNM people say, well, PNM didn't do this and didn't do that. And they go back into the past. And I say to them, simple analogy. I say, do you know in the motor vehicle, they have a small rearview mirror and a big windscreen? If we are to go forward, I can tell you, you cannot drive a vehicle going forward looking at the rearview mirror. Neither can you go forward looking at the windscreen alone. You have a combination of both. So yes, take fleeting glance of what the PNM did or did not do in the past, but do not let that determine your future. Look at the bigger windscreen. Look at the leadership and the vision of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley that gives you a future hope and aspiration, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at the big picture as we go forward. But we say, in getting at those visions and so on, let's begin with the end in mind. And to get there, we must do first things first. And our first order of business is to ensure that everyone in every constituency is prepared to and come out to vote on the 7th of September, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone. Every vote counts. Sometimes I walk around in Point Fortin and people say there's a safe seat. I say, hello. There is nothing like a safe seat. There is nothing like a safe seat. Don't have the mentality. There is no safe seat because voting is about numbers. If both of us are 10 and extra vote 11 will tell me that I won. So every single vote counts, ladies and gentlemen. So our first order of business is to ensure that we bring out everybody. Ma, pa, son, daughter. Come on for a representative at the next. For this is the vehicle that will make a difference. This is the mechanism that will allow us to make manifest our vision to lead and develop Trinidad and Tobago. This evening, as I close, I leave you with 5 words as we move forward to influence and shape the future of Trinidad and Tobago. Those words are, we can and we will. We can and we will. We can and we will vote the PNM into power. We can and we will ensure that Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley becomes the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. We can and we will ensure that Trinidad and Tobago gets good governance. We can and we will ensure that Library and Point Fortin get what they deserve for the development of these constituencies. We can and we will mobilize a Red Army with a Balizziated symbol, the likes of which you have never seen in this country, Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen. And so I close with a quote from President Obama. He said, the best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. Do not wait for good things to happen to you. If you go out and make good things happen, you will fill the world with hope. You will fill yourself with hope. Ladies and gentlemen, let us get up and do something. Let us get up. Encourage others to vote for the People's National Movement. If we are to move our constituencies from a place where it is now to where we want it to be, we have to act now. We have to ensure that everyone, including our young people, are registered to vote. We have to vote, ladies and gentlemen. I call out specifically on the young people in our community to come out and ensure that you are registered to vote for the People's National Movement. In conclusion, once again, I wish to extend my sincerest thanks and appreciation to all of you. The time to join Nicole and I and our political leader here at Majuba Junction. Special thanks to my Point Fortin supporters. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention. May God bless us all and indeed bless our nation. Great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. Thank you very much.
Show your love and appreciation one more time for your next member of Parliament, Point Fortin, Major General Edmund Dillon has not retired. Let me quickly, my dear friends, introduce our next speaker. She has a guiding passion for the development of people and communities. She wants to see an improvement in the quality of the people of the Brea constituency. She understands the need for job creation and the stimulation of economic activity within the constituency. She envisions the future development of the Brea constituency being centered on the following pillars: industry development, agriculture, tourism, human capital development, sports, and culture. In addition to these pillars, she wants to see a return to the community spirit and values of the past generation. She holds a BSc degree in chemistry and computer, as well as a Master's of Philosophy degree in chemistry. She has in excess of 14 years experience in the oil and industry of Trinidad and Tobago, with experience as well in the manufacturing sector. Born and raised in the southern side of the constituency in Santa Flora, welcome the next Member of Parliament for Brea, the dynamic Miss Nicole Olivier.
A new day dawning, and fat morning. No time for stalling. Let's go. Wake up everyone who's sleeping. Me new inspiration, no contemplation, deliberation. Let's go. Wake up everyone who's sleeping.
Good night, everyone. Welcome to Brea, home of the Pitch Lake, birthplace of the nation's oil industry. I am pleased to welcome all of you here tonight, and a very special welcome to all the visitors. I see my fellow candidates, Marsha from Faizabad, Terry I see from as far as Arima supporting Anthony Garcia. I see Lavanta Lease in the house. I see a big side from San Fernando East. Welcome all of you. Make yourself comfortable. This is PNM territory. Chairman of tonight's proceedings, Assistant Secretary of the party, Mr. Daniel Duki. Chairman of the party, Mr. Franklin Khan. Political leader of the PNM and the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Outgoing Member of Parliament for Brea, Mr. Fitzgerald Jeffrey, who has given me his full support and love all this time. Outgoing MP for the constituency of Point Fortin, Mrs. Paula Gopi-Schoon. The next MP for Point Fortin, Major General Dillon. Other executive members of the party, councillors from the neighboring corporation of the Borough Council in Point Fortin, the Brea Regional Corporation. All those listening on the radio live right now, all of those you streaming on the internet, friends, supporters, well-wishers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, pleasant good night to you all. I am Nicole Olivier, and it is my pleasure to address you tonight as your Brea candidate in the upcoming general election. For many of you here tonight, this is the first time you are seeing me. There's a reason for that. I am new to public life. I'm new to politics. Most of my career has been in the energy industry. I spent the last years working in the commercial and strategic aspects of the natural gas industry. I was involved in negotiating most of the agreements pertaining to the Atlantic LNG train for expansion. I worked on the Cross Island pipeline agreements. I've done a lot of work in energy project planning and analysis. During the last PNM administration, delegations from numerous African countries came to Trinidad to learn from our experience in industrial development. I was part of the team that met with to tell them they were able to successfully develop a gas-based industry. Back in 2010, when Trinidad and Tobago was pursuing a natural gas project in Ghana, I was part of the delegation that went to Ghana to negotiate with the Ghana Ministry of Energy to discuss the project proposal. I have spent all my adult life in the corporate world. Politics and public life are very new to me. But as a PNM candidate, I am not unique in that regard. When you look at the slate of candidates that our political leader, Dr. Keith Rowley, has chosen for this election, you will see that more than half of us are in fact new to public life. When we get together as candidates and share our experiences, we realize that each of us have our own story to tell. Something that happened during these past 5 years that compelled us to come forward. Some intolerable act of this government that made us say, enough is enough, time to get involved. For me, that trigger point was the state of emergency in August 2011. I don't know how well you all remember those days, but I recall it quite vividly. Every night, looking at the news on TV and seeing our young men being picked up off the streets, thrown into the backs of police vehicles and driven away. These innocent treated as stray dogs. The state of emergency lasted for 105 days. During that time, over 7,000 of our young men were arrested, locked up, had their rights taken away, lost their freedom. And all of this was done without a single charge being laid against them. I looked at those images nightly, and I looked at my little 3-year-old son. I felt the pain their mothers must have felt. I thought about how their wives, their sisters, their children must be hurting. This was something that our government did to our fellow citizens. I saw this as a blatant abuse of power. It reminded me of the stories I heard about our past colonial oppression. I looked at those men, and I'm thinking about my little boy. What kind of Trinidad and Tobago would he inherit if this type of government was allowed to continue? I recall the words of former US President John F. Kennedy. The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. It was clear to me then that if a government could so boldly trample on the rights of citizens, then that government is heading in one direction and one direction only, down a road of increased oppression and repression. And ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what happened. You all know the stories. Section 34, email gate, prison gate, the still unsolved murder of Dana Sita Hall, breaches in the judicial code, witness tampering, the Integrity Commission's abdication of its responsibilities, and the worst of all, the unjust expulsion of our political leader from the parliament. Never before has our country seen such blatant disregard for the rule of law and callous abuse of the Constitution. I bet Sir Ellis, the framers of our Constitution, must be turning in their graves. You see, the very foundation of our democracy, set in place by the People's National Movement and developed under successive PNM governments, was recklessly under attack by this Kamla Persad-Bissessar-led administration. So, for the sake of Trinidad and Tobago, for the sake of the children, I felt obligated to heed the words of Gandhi when he said, "Be the change you want to see." And hearing the call of our political leader, when he asked for more young people to come forward and serve the country, I decided it was time for me to step up to the crease. People of Brea, that is what has led me to stand before you here tonight. I can truly say that I am honored and proud to be a member of this great party and to be your candidate. As your candidate, I recognize that the primary concern in this constituency is the issue of high unemployment. This has a direct correlation with the low level of economic activity in Brea. A key indicator of economic activity in any community is the presence of a bank. In the entire constituency of Brea, there is none, not a single bank. There are only 2 ATMs, both of them in Santa Flora. That, ladies and gentlemen, if nothing else, clearly demonstrates the lack of confidence the banking community has in our community. In spite of our 100+ year history of oil and asphalt production, people of Brea, we deserve better. High unemployment is not the only concern I have noted. There are many areas in the constituency that are still challenged by the lack of proper road infrastructure. Areas inside Cruz, Cochrane, Brighton, Cato, number 4 Road, Palo Seco, Bryan Road, the back of Salazar Trace, all need proper roads to be built. Throughout the constituency, and particularly right here in Brea, there is an urgent need for road maintenance with the construction of proper drainage. In this, the 21st century, it is appalling to see many areas lacking a pipe-borne water supply or electricity. We have residents living inside Alexander Village, inside parts of Parrylands, in the back of Carapal, who have to resort to using diesel generators for their electricity supply. Facilities for recreation continue to be inadequate. The communities of Happy Valley, of Carapal and Pond Road, none of them have a playing field for recreation. But you know what? Despite not having the facilities, each of these communities still manage to annually to host annual sports and family day. So I must say, I admire their community spirit. This is the kind of good community spirit that we have to cherish and nurture. But in many of the areas where there are playing fields, the associated facilities and pavilions are very much absent. Pavilions need to be built in areas such as Bennett Village, and the grounds in Parrylands and Lotten. Many more of the grounds that exist need to have floodlights installed so that the youths can stay out a little bit longer. Our facilities for sports are sadly lacking. Yes, we have places to play football and cricket. But what about basketball? What about tennis? What about swimming? Shouldn't we be participating in these sports as well? Once upon a time, the Palo Seco Velodrome was a premier venue for track and field. Now this too has fallen under severe disrepair. And let's not forget the little ones. In this whole constituency, there is just one play park, the one right here in Brea. Let us look to Brea itself, Brea proper, the once bustling town of the 50s and 60s. We have lost our bank in Brea. We have lost our pharmacy. We now have to go to Rosilac to buy medication. We have so much industrial activity occurring in Brea, yet we don't have a fire station associated with all these industries. The Brea market is another sad story. The infrastructure has been rebuilt, yet the new market has not yet been opened. Are the vendors afraid no one will come due to the deplorable condition of the road leading to the market? And what about the fish market? This needs to be rebuilt, complete with all the modern facilities necessary to make it usable. Our library was functioning. Our kids went there to learn, to expand their minds. A full-service knowledge library we had. A small fire occurred in 2013, which caused it to be closed down for repairs. 2 years later, no work has been done, and the library remains closed. Where are our young people going to go for knowledge? Why has no efforts been made to reopen our library? We have a warden's office, but you cannot get any real services there. Even the courthouse is non-functional. That also has gone to Point Fortin. But I can't be all negative. We did get a new police station. So it seems the priority has shifted. Instead of providing facilities to keep the youths out of trouble, we seem to be focused on places to keep them when they do get into trouble. The cottages on Pierre Road, right next door from here. once a hub of activity, at jewelry classes, leather craft, tie-dye, batik. These have been closed for over 2 years. It's as though the government made a decision to keep La Brea depressed and repressed. Your PNM government will change that. Many of the issues faced in the constituency fall under the purview of the local government system. Since 2010, PNM constituencies, like La Brea, have been made to suffer greatly under a central government led by the People's Partnership. We understand how challenging it is for our councillors to have to operate in a corporation controlled by the PP. But not for long. I must commend our political leader for his stance on local government reform. The changes he proposes to make to the local government system, together with a proposed new Ministry of Rural Development, will go a long way towards improving the delivery of services to our communities. So, let us look to the future of La Brea constituency. My vision is to take La Brea to the next level in its developmental path. I have 2 simple goals. 1, to join the battle to save Trinidad and Tobago. And secondly, to improve the quality of life for all the people of La Brea. By this I mean that every citizen should have equal opportunity to enjoy education, to enjoy health, and to enjoy wealth. The development of our constituency will be best use of our many assets. These include attracting new industry to our industrial estates, our vast area of land for agriculture, our marine resources and fisherfolk, upgrading our sports and cultural facilities so we can recapture our great legacy in sports, maximizing the industrial and tourism potential of the La Brea Pitch Lake and all of our historic oil sites, harnessing the potential of small and micro enterprises by facilitating their growth from the kitchen to the factory, and upgrading infrastructure across the constituency. Your PNM government's focus is about creating real, decent, sustainable jobs for all citizens. As we seek to create the future of this constituency, we recognize that we must be bold. We must declare where we want to go and take the bold steps to move forward. Major advancements in human progress have been achieved by one individual taking bold steps. Dr. Eric Williams took a bold step in January 1976 when he decided that rather than export our oil and natural gas and just live off the revenues, we would take the more difficult road and develop a petrochemical industry. This led to the establishment of the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley took a bold step in 2013 when he changed the constitution of the PNM to the one-man, one-vote system to elect a political leader. And he brought forward the internal election so that the membership could choose the leader to take us into the government. That led to a revitalization of the party and a rush of new persons to join the PNM. And this woman you see before you here tonight took a bold step on the 16th March 2015 when she walked out of the corporate world and into the screening process of the PNM to become the first female candidate for La Brea constituency. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I ask each and every one of you to take a bold step. Those of you who have never been politically active before, take a bold step and get involved. Come out and walk with us. When you see us coming into your area, come out and join us. Volunteer your time, volunteer your resources, volunteer your advice. Come out and walk with us. To those of you who have never voted before, I urge you to take a bold step. Come out and vote. It is your right. It is your duty to participate in the democratic electoral process. Come out and vote. To those of you who have never supported the People's National Movement, I say take a bold step. Come out and vote for the PNM. Vote for your candidate, Nicole Oliver. Vote for the leader, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Together, we can grow this constituency into an industrial center that is its destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from your candidate, so you know I am qualified for this job. I have told you what motivated me to take this step, so you understand the depth of my commitment. You have heard my vision for this constituency. You know the track record of this great party, the People's National Movement. You know the integrity and competence of our leader, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. So tonight I ask you, are you voting for Nicole Oliver? Are you voting for the People's National Movement? Are you voting for Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley? So on election day, when the ballots are cast and the votes are counted, we can all stand with pride and say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and it shall prevail. Right, thank you.
No time for stalling. Let's go. Wake up everyone who's sleeping. Meet me on the road. New inspiration, no contemplation, deliberation. Let's go. Wake up everyone who's sleeping. Meet me on the road. Who wants in the air?
As Foreign Affairs Minister and served the party as Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Welcome to address us, the dynamic Paula Gopi Schoon.
I feel good when you're wrapped up in my arms, dancing to a reggae song. Feel good, feel good. I feel good, cause your perfume isn't loud. I can talk about. Feel good, feel good. You feel like velvet rubbing over my skin. And when your hair dances.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Brea, do you feel good? The Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the PNM and incoming Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the quintessential Caribbean man. Mr. Franklin Can, Chairman of our great party, Ms. Nicole Oliver, the next MP for Brea, Major General Edmund Dillon, the next MP for Point Fortin, our youth speaker, members of the leadership of the PNM, members of the Brea campaign team, and the executive of the Brea constituency, distinguished PNM supporters of Brea, of Santa Flora, of Erin, and of Point Fortin. Good night. Good night. I say good night to historic Brea. Home of the Pitch Lake, where British explorer Walter Raleigh is said to have used the bitumen substance to caulk his ships. And more than 100 years ago, this entire southwestern peninsula of Brea, Fyzabad, Point Fortin, Santa Flora, Pinal, these were all very villages and bushes, very undeveloped lands, all forested, no roads, unskilled labor force, with malaria and yellow fever being rampant. And this is where it started. And people from all over the Caribbean came here, and we thank them. They are living here in Trinidad and Tobago now, and they are supporting the People's National Movement. So that we thank them. These people took great risks and they felled the trees in the forest to make rigs of and to develop the oil camps. And you will remember, and this is how the labor movement also started, with the stratification of workers. And that is the history of Brea and Point Fortin. You will remember all the great pioneers of Darwin, Lelam, a Trinidadian, and you, the people of Brea, responsible for its own development. And so this is how the oil is in Guapo, and in Paralands, and in surrounding areas. You had Trinidad Oil Fields United, and at that time, just a small refinery and a pier made out of wood. And then came UBOT. You remember those days? And then there was expansion, all this oil discoveries all over the place, all the way up to Penal. And then came the expansion, not only of the refinery, but all kinds of economic activity, also social expansion as well, schools and hospitals. By the 1960s, with PNM at the fray, all kinds of finished products were then produced, jet fuel and high-quality kerosene. And you will remember the days of Shell Talks. Shell Talks, you remember the ad, clean up your house with Shell Talks for Christmas. And then you had in those days the new concrete jetty built, capable of handling larger tankers, bunkers, and large coastal vessels. And so the development continued with the People's National Movement. The entire southern half of the island was improved, including Penal. And I want to remind you of some of the great talents in Shell who were committed to Trinidad and Tobago. Maxwell Richards, our former president, Barry Barnes, he was a minister of mines, and Bashrad Ali, who served as a member of the Senate. And at the same time, in our own party, our development continued. And we acknowledge the stalwarts of the day. Sheila Lamorelle, Santa Flora, pioneering PNM woman, committed to culture. And of course, Louis John Williams of Point Coco, Gonzalez and Hackshaw and Cyril Rogers in Point Fortin, A.C. Alexis, the first PNM representative in Brea. He was an independent in 1954 and then came over to us sometime in 1959, and he served 4 terms, your first PNM MP. But I go back to the development of the Southwest Belt. It was under the Eric Williams government in 1974 that the government purchased Shell, which became Trintoc, for $99 million. And just think of this government, $400 million on life support. And then came the purchase of BP Faizabad and Palo Seco, which became Tesoro. And then it was under the Chambers government, I believe, that Texaco was in 1985, primarily to serve the workers, to save jobs and pensions. A PNM government also purchased the Lake Asphalt, and it was Prime Minister Manning's dream to develop Labidco, the industrial estate of Brea, as Point Lisas was becoming very overcrowded. And so then, massive development started in Brea, perhaps the best port in the Caribbean. And so we built the TGU power plant to provide energy for the estate. And then, of course, we started the Alutrin smelter plant, a very modernized, efficient, and very environmentally safe plant. And that was under construction by the Chinese. But then the UNC government came in, and this was scrapped by the Kamla Prasad Bissessa administration. And so Brea was abandoned. And now they're talking about, at this 99th hour, developing Brea. But you know that is hogwash. And the latest they're talking about is the Mitsubishi DME plant. You're hearing a lot about that. Well, we welcome any investment in Trinidad and Tobago, and for you in Brea, of course. And in fact, it is under the PNM we have become a model for attracting investment. But this government is not really serious. So they've gone ahead and they've concluded agreements for engineering, procurement, and construction. And guess what? also for gas supply. And Kamla, today I want to ask you, what gas? Which gas? Promised that it will start in 2016. It is now carded for 2018. But with which gas, Kamla? Is it from Juniper? Because as far as we calculate, Juniper will only normalize the current gas shortage to the downstreamers in the Point Lisa estate. So the question is, what did you commit the country to? Does this involve compensation if we are unable to supply the gas? And if so, what levels of compensation? And I think that we should have the details. We want the air cleared on this one from Mrs. Bissard-Bissessor and from the Minister of Energy. What will it cost the people of Trinidad and Tobago that when we cannot supply the gas which we committed to? We know that you do not care, but we in the PNM are concerned about taxpayers' money. We want full disclosure of the gas supply contract, and that is because we do not trust you. We do not trust your government. We do not trust you, Kamla Bissard-Bissessor. And so, what I want to assure you, the people of Brea and Point Fortin and Palo Seco and Faizabad and even Pinal and Debe, that you will all be taken care of under the Rowley administration. And we want you to put your trust in us. And Dr. Rowley has promised us the revisiting of the Union Estate and also the marine facilities. While our manifesto has not yet been unveiled, Dr. Rowley has addressed the rural development, the local development. Nicole spoke a little bit about that, crime and corruption. And I just want to remind you about a bit of the local government. And it is that at that sub-national level, it is designed to facilitate environment for all of you. Better roads and drains and overall infrastructure with increased services provided by your government entity. It means an improved local government with greater capacity and administrative capability. Increased financial resources for the corporation, but with strict control under the Ministry of Finance, but with zero tolerance of corruption. It means increased participation by local contractors, including medium, small, and micro enterprises. And more than ever, it involves increased participation by you, your voice in what is best for your district. It is people-oriented and people-centered. It is about improving your living conditions, your environment, and a better quality of life for all of you. It is about propelling economic and social development in and rebuilding rundown areas, leveling out the disparities of uneven economic and social development. No effort will be spared under the Rowley administration to improve your living conditions in Brea. And as I said before, development of particularly rural areas, a significant role will also be played by you, with your opinions built into the necessary solutions. Whether it is with the economy, whether it is with culture, or even in politics, it will be the democratic way under the People's National Movement, reinforcing in a way your self-governance, securing your legitimate rights and interests. It will be your contribution to policy making. The Rowley administration has demonstrated to date zero tolerance for corruption and will comprehensively promote the rule of law in Trinidad and Tobago. Under Dr. Rowley, government officials dare not, cannot, and will not be corrupted or allowed to be corrupted. There's plenty of positive energy in our camp, as you've seen tonight. And Dr. Rowley, we commend you for your choice of your candidates. They are all, I can tell you from today, from the walkabout with Nicole, bright, down to earth, honest, and can better serve you, the people of this great Brea. And I can tell you about my boy in Point 14 as well. Very brilliant, but down to earth, honest, and ready to serve the people of Point 14. And they are all incorruptible, best of all. And they will be in close contact with you, facing your real situations. So in the PNM, we declare an all-out war on misdemeanors by public servants and extravagance and waste. We see the rule of law as fundamental, ensuring accountability by making new laws and amending existing ones as we begin our reform process. And I'll tell you a thing about reforms. They are not negative things as the UNC would like you to believe. What it means is a clear path of transition for our society, a direction for our future development, the pursuit of goals and real happiness, true happiness, not the cavalierness of this government, not the dancing and the drinking and the kissing and the slapping and the pinching that goes on in this government. And the smoking. Tonight we want to say goodbye. My time is limited. We want to say goodbye to what was supposed to be the greatest government on earth, which began their showing in 2010 with the largest audience of the day, all promising a variety of acts, including controlling crime and stopping corruption. So you had Sack, the ringmaster. He was higher than anyone in the show, but Uncle Sack, eventually lost his whip. Then you had Rambo, balancing a globe on his nose, which eventually fell on his stomach. Well, you know, it sat there firmly until the act fell apart. Then you had Feudal, or Foodle, pedaling a unicycle on a high wire and doing a trapeze routine, a double, to impress, because he wants to ensure that he is able to take over the circus. And in their desire to create impressions, many of them tried to climb to the top of the greasy pole, but they all fell flat. All of the women were trapezing from side to high, but they were never noticed, and they all fell to the ground one by one. One of them wore cowboy boots, but he was swooning along with the jester from our neighboring constituency, but both got into trouble with the ladies. Many of them, however, were left to perfect juggling knives and eventually stabbing themselves. And you know, of course, about Hoppin' Toppin' from a neighboring island. She stabbed herself. And then, of course, there were others who were part of the cast, but they really played no part. Perhaps the only successful feature was the kissing booth, with Deviant taking it level. And you know, they took that booth to China and all, in the other room. But you know, literally, there are only two members of this act left standing. The impresario, the maestro, and all he is doing is babbling and gabbling and rambling and shooting off his mouth, talking about, but nobody is listening to him. And then, of course, you have the self-named lioness. She has called herself the lioness. And you know, she's always shortening something. If she's talking about Trinidad, she says Trinidad. If she's talking about the ministries, she says the mysteries. And she's talking about the Ministry of Energy, the most important ministry in this country, and she says the mystery of energy. And Kamala, what is that? What is that? Is that the Ministry of No Good Government? What is it? Not gas. What is it? But here we are, left with the lioness, very moribund, walking around in circles, slowly by now, waning, slumping, dying, and toothless, and calling us, and still saying, my heart is clean. A very clean lioness. I've shortened it too. Lioness, Kamlai. Nothing without the ringmaster. And I ask you, Kamla, how could you describe yourself as clean when you took a decision to enter into a covenant with Sack to eat the forbidden thief of fruit, and for that we find you guilty. Guilty as charged. But ladies and gentlemen, the circus is over. Except of course, for a few tired, fired, and expired members attempting to start an act on the side of you to merging and reviving the old circus. But you will not allow them. Not this audience. And not even the people of Brea, Point Fortin, and Santa Flora, and not even for free. So ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for the battle of all elections, it is only your power that can save this country and take us back to a path of security. So I ask you to act responsibly in spreading the good news of the PNM, the good word of the PNM, of all of our plans and all that is to be revealed soon, of the astuteness of our political leader and his seriousness in making our country a better place, and of course of your candidates, Dylan and Nicole. They are committed to serving you, and so are all of us, Jeffrey and I. Whatever our spheres that we continue to serve, we will continue to serve the people of Brea and Point Fortin, always. So tonight, you've gotten the advice from your current candidates. On the morning, you get up, in fact, the day before, you convince your family, convince the young ones to go out and to vote for the People's National Movement. Put your X by the Balizé. Put your X in favor of the Honorable Keith Rowley. Put your X in favor of Nicole, your candidate for Brea, and Edmund Dillon, your candidate for Point Fortin. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we will always prevail. Thank you. God bless you.
I feel good when you're wrapped up in my arms, dancing to a reggae song. Feel good, feel good. I feel good, 'cause your perfume isn't loud, and only I can talk about.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us show our appreciation to Paula, not just for an outstanding contribution tonight, but her service as a member of Parliament for Point Fortin. Show your love for Paula Gopi School. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the feature address of the evening. Our feature speaker focuses on doing the right things, regardless of its consequences. He has demonstrated without doubt that he is committed to service at the highest level, as he always acts without fear or favor, malice or ill will. He first entered Parliament as an opposition senator in 1987 and served until 1990. During this time, he served as deputy political leader of the movement. In 1991, he entered the lower house, having been elected as a member of Parliament for Diego Martin West. And in this regard, he has spent altogether almost 3 decades of unbroken parliamentary service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. He is the only political leader of the movement who has served in both houses of Parliament. In addition, his service record shows that he held a multiplicity of cabinet ministerial portfolios, having served as Minister of Agriculture, Land and Marine Resources, Minister of Planning and Development, Minister of Housing, and Minister of Trade and Industry. After the party's devastating defeat at the polls in 2010, this leader has led the strategic re-engineering and realignment of the movement, which resulted in 3 major electoral victories at the polls. In the last THA elections, the local government elections of 2020, and the by-elections in the St. Joseph constituency. Altogether, this outstanding track record has led some experts to conclude that he is the best prepared candidate ever for the position of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago needs a strong leader, full of courage and compassion, and is filled with integrity. We need someone that cannot be misled by a cabal, but someone that is sober-minded. This someone is the most superior candidate for the job as Prime Minister. He was last kicked out of the Parliament as the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West. But this political stone that the builders reject is about to become the chief political cornerstone. As the next time he enters Parliament, he would enter as the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Help me welcome your political leader, and no doubt, the next Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 We're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 Look how the sun now raising up, and the crowd now waking up. The atmosphere have vibes, and nothing can break it up. The girl never wine non-stop. We had the drinks them in a my cup. We gonna party all night, all night. 24 parties we hit in a row. Tonight at the very last show, before we head out on the road. The girl them a release the load. So let me see your hands up, so everybody know, put your hands up. If you're ready for the road, let your friend them know. We're ready for the road. We're ready for the road. So we're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. We're ready.
Thank you very much, Chairman of tonight's proceedings, Assistant General Secretary of the People's National Movement, Mr. Daniel Duki, Party Chairman, Mr. Franklin Khan, my former parliamentary and cabinet colleagues, the outgoing Member of Parliament for Brea, Mr. Fitzgerald Jeffrey, my former parliamentary and cabinet colleague, the outgoing Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, Mrs. Paula Gopi Schoon, one of the most impressive youth speakers I've had the opportunity to hear and observe on a PNM platform tonight, Mr. Kern Bilwin. And the lady of the night, the next Member of Parliament for Brea, Ms. Nicole Olivier. Ably supported by the best prepared candidate, making his maiden speech like no other has been made tonight. I speak of no other person but the impressive Major General Edmund Dillon. And just when you begin to think that hope is lost, these people, like Major General Dillon and Nicole Olivier, they have come forward to the service of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. All is not lost. Other party officers, candidates visiting, councillors, supporters of our effort in 2015, the tens of thousands of those of you listening at home to the PNM's platform, members of the media, members of the security services, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PNM campaign of 2015. I don't want to keep you out too long tonight, and I don't want to do much more than taking what the candidates themselves have said to you and to me tonight, that the future of Trinidad and Tobago on September 8th, the day after the general election, will be in good hands. But I want to spend a couple minutes tonight talking to the people of Brea and surroundings. Because you see, before we came here this evening, I had the opportunity for a few hours to walk in Brea and visit people in this community, in their homes, in the streets. And there's one song, one complaint, a very justifiable one, made to me as leader of the PNM and as a person who is aspiring to be Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. The good and gentle people of Brea have said to me all evening, our country has forgotten us. And as we make you Prime Minister, please remember us. Don't forget us. And that strikes a chord with me, because you know they're right. The people of Brea have every good reason to feel that Trinidad and Tobago has forgotten them. And the people of Brea have every good reason to believe that they should support the PNM again and expect that the PNM forget them. Brea, tonight, I give you the assurance that the next government of Trinidad and Tobago will make sure that those complaints are attended to. Because you see, it is not that we as a people in this country do not know that the poverty levels in Brea are among the highest in the country. And that Brea is a special problem requiring special solutions. It is not that we didn't know that there are people in Brea who are looking to the government of Trinidad and Tobago to intervene on your behalf, to do something to bring you either close to or up to where the rest of the country is. We know that. But for some strange reason, ill luck has been striking Brea over and over and over. I was in the cabinet when this matter of Brea's condition attracted the attention of the PNM cabinet. And we took the decision that the way to treat with Brea, to bring opportunities to Brea, was to grow the national economy in the district of the Brea Point 14 area, and those industries that will grow the economy will bring opportunity to the people of Brea and Point 14. And we were thinking about this even at the time of having to close down the refinery in Point 14. And out of those considerations of a PNM government came the reason for converting our gas to LNG and to export it and to place that export business in Point 14. And against that same understanding, we gave specific inviting conditions for a chemical industrial plant to be placed in Brea as a greenfield site, giving them special price on the gas so that they will locate in Brea to lift you from where you are to where you want to go. And then the elections came. And the new government, which was a UNC government, invited the chemical plant to be removed from Brea to Point 14. To Point Lisa, sorry. So the conditions that we gave for them to come to Trinidad and Tobago and to be located here, to lift your environment, to create opportunities for you, they allowed them to move from Greenfield, Brea, to industrially develop Point 14, carrying with them the same conditions. When they went to Point Lisas with those conditions, which were better than the Point Lisas conditions, because we wanted them to locate in Brea, the others in Point Lisas said, well, you know what? If they could come here on those conditions, we want those conditions too. And you got shafted a second time. So you lost the plant, and you had to pay or lose income up there, because by the plant going up there, they changed the conditions up there for you. And then, of course, we said, you know, we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we have what it takes here to build offshore platforms and not buy and import everyone from Texas. And a PNM cabinet of which I was a part. We said we'll build those in an industrial estate in this area. We created Labidco. Remember Labidco? And just as Labidco was completed and the industrial estate was ready, elections and PNM went out of office. And what did the UNC do? The UNC spent 5 years making sure that Labidco never saw the light of day. It was when the PNM came back into office 5 years later that we operationalized the Labidco industrial estate. And today, we are building platforms at Labidco, and that estate is pretty much full. And of course, we wanted to grow the economy. It was the PNM, against all the objections from know-it-alls and those who have no faith in our country and in themselves, who said we could not have a steel industry in this country because we don't have any iron ore. And the PNM created a steel industry in this country, and today, out of Point Lisas, we are exporting steel and we are exporting direct iron, reduced iron. But there were those who said it couldn't be done. When we set about to export methanol, they were saying that it could be done. Today, there are many methanol plants in Trinidad, and at one time, we were the largest exporter of methanol in the world from Point Lisas. When I was a boy, we used to buy bags of fertilizers from imported plants. Today we are an exporter of fertilizer. And that is why all of those things coming under a PNM initiative, but Brea missed out. So when we decided once again to expand our industrial base, we said we want a piece of the world's growing aluminium industry. And we tried to locate it here in Brea. Again, I don't know what they have against Brea, but once again, they intervened and they shut down Brea's opportunity for industrialization. And I'll tell you one thing. Had the election not been called in 2010 and had gone the full course to 2013 or late 2012, by the time these infidels had come into office, if they had won the election, there would have been an aluminum industry in Brea, and they couldn't have shut it down then. But as fate would have it, the election was called midterm and the plant was being built. Everything was underway. And what did they do? They shut it down. And you know, last week, I was reading from one of their 1,000-page. You know, you can't buy the papers now. half of the newspaper is government advertisement. And a half of the other half is UNC advertisement. I don't normally read it, but when I saw aluminium in one of the texts, it caught my attention. So I wanted to know what it was saying about aluminium. And guess what? It was in a section of their brochure, their brainwashing document, trying to tell you that the PNM has always failed in its manifesto promises. A whole page of garbage. And in that garbage, these bold-faced wrecking crew people have the gall to list among the things that the PNM failed to do as a manifesto promise is to create an aluminum industry in Trinidad and Tobago. They came into office and met an aluminum industry being constructed at Union in Brea. They shut it down. They close it down. And then they write in a document in the newspaper and telling people, believing that you're stupid, that the PNM's symbol of failure was failure to build an aluminum industry in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, when they announced in 2010 that they were going to shut down the aluminum industry, okay, they are the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We have to abide by what they do. They have the authority to do it. But some questions were asked by the opposition. How have you effected that shutting down? What are the consequences for the financial and legal obligations with the government of China? What is it costing us? They have never answered those questions. So even as I speak to you today as opposition leader after 5 years, there is no information in or out of the parliament about the shutdown of that plant. So don't be surprised if after the 7th of September, the new government has to announce to you that you have serious legal and financial liabilities which attached to that shutting down of that plant. Because I know for a fact that long after they were boasting about how they shut it down, there were staff being paid in the very said company that was supposed to have been shut down. Our Prime Minister went to China, which was the country that was funding that operation through an export bank loan. I asked the Prime Minister when she came back from China, what was the outcome of any discussions concerning the shutting down of the aluminum plant at Union? She never answered. Never answered. Of course, she wants us to believe that she shut down a $300 million US plant here on that Chinese loan, with the Chinese government sitting quietly and looking on. And she went to China and wine and dine, and that never came up in the discussions. She wants us to believe that. And now what she wants us to believe, that the only thing we should be concerned about with a trip in China is who was in the room next door. I am not concerned about who is in the room next door or who is under the bed. I want to know what happened with the aluminum plant that was shut down. And people of Brea, people of Trinidad and Tobago, you will not know until the PNM comes into office on the 8th of September. Because all of these very pertinent questions, all of them, the Prime Minister, the cabal, and the appendages have a style of just not answering. Just don't answer. These are questions that in any serious country, no Prime Minister could have turned the back and not answer. And I defy any one of her supporters and her minions and her mouthpieces tonight to tell me that there are answers in the public domain to these questions. The power plant was lying down there. $2 billion worth of investment for you, the people of Brea and environs. And they left it there as if it wasn't there. For 2 years, paying $60 million a month for power that we don't need. I ask you, the people of Brea, what could $60 million have done for you? $60 million. And when we asked the question in the parliament, in your parliament, they lied to us and told us it was $40 million a month. Even that was very bad. But we found out it was $67 million a month when Tiantec published their own document, because Tiantec was paying the bill. So while the government was lying to us in the parliament, telling us it was $40 million a month, Tiantec was telling us it was 50% more than that. You can't trust nothing they tell you. And you again will never know the truth until the PNM comes into office on the 8th of September. So we are an exporter of methanol, exporter of urea, exporter of steel. And we want to expand our economy. They killed off the aluminum industry. They killed that off. But there are other opportunities available to us, Brea. There are other opportunities. And those opportunities will only come to you under PNM government. For the last 5 years, we have spent our time monitoring the government and reporting to you. And I can tell you the report card is horrible. And you all know that. But we've done other things too. We've organized our party. We've prepared our public policy documents. And we have selected our candidates. And now is the hour when you, the people, looking at all of that, it falls to you to choose who will govern Trinidad and Tobago from the 7th of September onward. And you know, having done that, you look around and we try to find out where can we expand our economy. Because if we don't expand our economy to create the opportunities that you hanker after, we can only end up being depressed and believing that there is no hope. But we are the PNM. It was the PNM that said we could sell steel. It was the PNM that said we could sell methanol. It was the PNM that said we could sell urea. The PNM that is now saying in Brea that we could sell plywood. The United States, our neighbor and our major trading partner, uses millions of tons of plywood every year. What do we have in Trinidad and Tobago that could allow us to target that industry? We don't have the wood, but we have the electricity and we have the hydrocarbon adhesives. And we have CARICOM neighbors that have plenty wood. And the same way, we import iron ore into Trinidad and Tobago and built a steel industry. We and our CARICOM neighbors of Guyana and Suriname, using Trinidad and Tobago's adhesives and electricity, we can create in Trinidad and Tobago a plywood industry for export. And I've spent the last 2 years looking at that and talking to people, and I can tell you tonight, having raised these in the correct quarters, there are investors around the world who would look to us to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm saying here in Brea tonight that one of the first things the next government will do will ask the relevant ministry to pursue that possibility. And such an industry will be located right here in Brea, at Union. You have one of the best ports in the country because one of the assets of this area is the Deepwater Harbor in Brighton. We're going to make that a port to bring in the product. We will manufacture the product here for export and it will go out and join our other exports. And once you have an industry like that, other industries will follow. And Brea, you will begin to join the rest of the country in enjoying the quality of life that we enjoy elsewhere. That's how it's done. That's how it's done. And to the extent that there are other industries, we will ensure that the Southwest Peninsula, which we identify in our overall national plan as the area for further industrialization, that it comes to you here. And despite and the vindictiveness that you have experienced under other governments, will come to an end. And the young people of Brea can look forward to jobs, good jobs, in industries of which we can all be proud. When I talk about spite and vindictiveness and incompetence, let me show you what I'm talking about. I have served in many capacities in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And I was Minister of Housing from 2003 to 2007. In 2007, as part of the National Housing Program, the ministry for which I had responsibility, embarking on a major explosion in housing construction around the country, had a component here in Brea on Pier Road. We were building about 80 units, I think, on Pier Road. I was the minister under which that project started in 2007. Would you believe that a government comes into office in 2010 and spend 5 years ignoring you? And now in the election season, with the election 9 weeks away, the government now is rushing to try and build and finish those units and talking about handing out 10 units in Brea today, and talking about handing out some more before the elections. What an absolute insult to you, the people of Brea. HDC houses there, sitting there for 5 years unattended. And what is worse, the very election that in the season, in front of your face, they're asking you to put them back into office to abuse you again. People of Brea, how much more are you prepared to take? Or will you follow us on our vision and our efforts in the PNM to bring to Brea the industrialization that is going to lift this country and lift this area, lift this community, lift this family, and lift you as part of the family of Trinidad and Tobago? I want to give you another assurance. You see that Bellevue estate in the back there? It's Petro-Trin land. There are 1 or 2 small issues with it, but it holds the key to the development and expansion of Brea. One of the first things the next government will do is to put that piece of land into the hands of planners, along with the Corporation of State, Petro-Trin, to make sure that development takes place on that land, so that you, the people of Brea and surroundings, in the way that you ought to benefit. I walked the district this evening, and many people lament to me that there isn't a banking service in this part of the country. And it reminded me of a movie, The 10 Commandments. You know, when the Egyptian slaves were allowed to be freed after the plague, and Moses took them out into the desert, and it appeared as though there was no hope and they were lost and they will die in the desert. And one man walked up to Moses and said, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt why you have brought us here to die? Is it because they don't expect the people of Brea to have money for banking service?" But from this platform tonight, I tell you, you, the people of Brea, you own a bank. You own a bank. And if you don't have a banking service in this part of the country, and you are being ignored and neglected in a way, at least one bank in this country, the one that you own, must come in and take up that responsibility. I want to say that the PLM government will instruct FCB, but we'll talk to FCB on your behalf. Brea, a change is going to come. Brea's time is now. You've endured enough. You've been hurt enough for supporting the PNM, and you will hurt no more. No more. Trinidad and Tobago has been deprived of your talent and your intellect, your input and your industry. No more. The lights will go on again in Brighton, and happiness will return to the Southwestern Peninsula. You've given us in this peninsula some of your brightest sons and daughters in 2015. And I am pleased and proud to lead them into political battle. And when we raise the victory flag of the Balizé, Labre will be out front saying to us that Trinidad and Tobago, we're moving forward with boundless faith in our destiny. It might very well have been a good thing that you are here. You're not forgotten, but you have not benefited as you should have. I came down here to observe your pain during that oil spill. I was hurt by the lies from Petrotrin, by the lies from the government, and a prime minister that came down to you and say, I thought it was worse than that. I thought it was worse than that. What did she expect? A nuclear holocaust? And then, when it was time to pay compensation, Petrotrin, without a murmur, paid $20 million to the EMA, admitting liability for mishandling the reporting of the disaster. I want to repeat that. The EMA fined Petrotrin $20 million for failing to properly report the disaster. But when it was time to pay the people who were physically hurt, money and day for that. Because it's Labre people, supporters, and you were treated like dogs in your own country by the same people who were working for you. I hope you understand that Petrotrin employees are your employees. And lies. Fitzgerald Jeffrey, he stood up in the parliament week after week after week advocating on your behalf. And tonight, I want to congratulate him for having represented you. I want to thank him for the job he did, raising Labre's voice when they wouldn't listen in the parliament, when they disrespected him and behaved as though he's from another planet. But the little man was strong and they couldn't faze him. A little man with a big voice. And he's a man of the greatest decency. When the script did not choose him to continue as a member of parliament, he said, I will support whoever is chosen 100%. That is the PNM spirit. And tonight, you would have heard Nicole Olivier telling you who is her mentor and who is walking behind her step, offering her to the people of the constituency of Labre. Fitzgerald Jeffrey, we thank you. We thank you very sincerely for the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. I've said to all my associates and all my colleagues in the political arena, do not fall in love with office. Office is always for a time. And once you see it that way, you can move in and out of office without pain and anguish. Gerald Jeffrey is a man who understands that. And such men are always available for the good service of the good people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we are in good hands. You heard tonight, young Nicole Olivier. She might be young, but well prepared, well trained, with a track and a record of performance at the highest level. She told you tonight that she was a member of the negotiating team of Trinidad and Tobago talking to Ghana about cooperation in energy. You know what the outcome of that was? A big fat zero. Because the government change before the tree bore fruit. And this government of Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa has a blot on its service that has hurt us so bad. We were on the verge, Trinidad and Tobago, of providing the Ghanaians with the technical support that we can provide for our benefit and getting involved in the hydrocarbon industry as part of our external expansion. The UNC, by its incompetence and hatred for the PNM, ensured that like the aluminum smelter, that died. When it was dying and the Ghanaians were concerned about it, they sent an emissary from the office of the president to talk to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to find out what madness is this. How could Trinidad and Tobago not be pursuing these initiatives? The envoy was here for 3 days and couldn't see the Prime Minister. And when he was eventually able to see her, it was somewhere in somebody's constituency office, somewhere in deep South Trinidad. What an insult. And of course, if you are a presidential envoy and you report that story home, the next thing we know, the Chinese replaced Trinidad and Tobago in Ghana, thanks to Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her cabal, because they believed they were spiting the PNM, and in attempting to spite the PNM, they damaged Trinidad and Tobago. But you've given us Nicole in another capacity, and she will do you proud. She deserves your support. And as for Major General Edmund Dillon, if ever there was a man prepared for service in Trinidad and Tobago, it is Major General Edmund Dillon. Prepared at the level of the home, at the level of primary school, at the level of secondary school, at the level of the university, and at the level of the defense force. And today, he brings all of that to the political arena. And the political arena will not be the same. It will be a better place with Edmund Dillon there. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we are not a basket case, but we are mishandling our affairs. And if we rectify our attitude, rectify our lawlessness, and be each other's keeper, and live up to the full potential of this bountiful land which God has given us, we can become the envy of the region and the world. All that is missing is commitment and good leadership. I can tell you, those who are in office today, they got there with the support of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They failed us terribly. We've made no progress in the last 5 years, but we spent more money in the last 5 years than any government in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, with nothing to show for it. And if there's anybody who can prove that, it is the people of Brea. $400 billion. And you, the people of Brea, have nothing to show for it. Which is why tonight, I ask you, not for anybody's head, but I want the deposit in Brea. They must lose their deposit if they put up a candidate in Brea. Because you have had nothing to show. And of course, you know, they say they are lioness. Well, if you tell enough lie, you could be a lioness. They will come here to Brea and tell you that before they came in 2010, 18% of the population was getting water. And in this 5-year period, they raised that to 85%. They will tell you that crime gone down spectacularly. I have heard that from them. But you in Brea know that the reason why the bank closed down in Brea is because of criminal conduct in your community that has gone unabated and unchecked. Long ago, in the wild, wild west, they used to have bank robberies on a regular basis, train robberies, but they didn't close down the west because of robberies, but they closed down a bank in Brea because of that. And the government is telling you that crime has gone down. Gone down. When people who should be solving crime, dibbling and dabbling in something resemble grass of some kind. And when the police find out, instead of the police going to police headquarters to report what they found, the police going to the parliament to talk to Jack Warner to find out how to bury the story. Understand something. All of this might sound like fun and games. It is deadly serious. This country has some serious issues. Right now, the government is doing all kinds of things involving serious expenditure, largely in corrupt practice. And we are experiencing a collapse in the oil price and the revenue status. After 5 years with record spending, the government has not come up with one single revenue initiative. Not even one. But $60 billion a year, every budget bigger than the one before. A single revenue raising measure. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you do that with your own pocket money, how long will you last before you broke? It's the same principle. Expenditure and revenue, they have to be a relation between them. Right now, the only thing the Prime Minister is not prepared to give away is the throne of the angel Gabriel for the election. They wanted to impress you that they were concerned about babies. So they're going to give milk to mothers who made babies. And then they budgeted for this milk, and they budgeted $120 million. And all that was required was $20 million. And of course, the $100 million was to go somewhere else. That happened in the parliament in the last quarter before the parliament dissolved. True story. But you know, when the mark bus that they were thieving money from dying children in the Children Life Fund, they want you to believe it is something shocking and unknown to them. It's the same principle with the baby milk in the parliament. They budgeted to give milk to every baby, all 18,500, knowing full well that only 4,000 buy. Same thing with the money for the mothers. They make out vouchers as if mothers were getting money to go with the babies abroad. And then they stole the money from the least of our citizens. Those infants who were struggling for their lives, good God, have they no conscience? And then the Prime Minister is pretending that she is upset about it and somebody should be punished because she puts in there. I want to say to the Prime Minister tonight, stop taking the people of Trinidad and Tobago for fools. That money that they have been stealing from, the vast majority of that fund is taxpayers' money. Understand that very clearly. So far, the Minister of Health and the Prime Minister has been giving you the impression it was their money from their salaries. The bulk of the money in that Child Life Fund is taxpayers' money that they've been stealing from children who look to the rest of humanity for hope. Their very life depended on your intervention, And even then, your kleptocratic conduct could not be controlled. Yeah? And then the Prime Minister is pretending that she just found out. Lie. We raised that matter in the Parliament almost a year ago because we were informed about the there. And initially, at the very beginning, they asked us to contribute part of our salary, and we said no, or they're going to thief it. So say, so done. So when we heard of the theft in that Children Life Fund, we went to the Parliament and we raised it and we confronted the Minister of Health. And he shamefacedly said to us that the matter will be investigated. Not a thing happened. With live sport, nothing happened. Because this Prime Minister only acts on matters of this nature when they come out to embarrass the government in the newspaper. It's only when it comes out in the newspaper as a great embarrassment that the Prime Minister acts. So they did nothing when it was raised in the Parliament. And when it came up again recently, 2 weeks ago, the Minister of Health watched the press and watched all of us in our faces to us. There is no corruption in the Children Life Fund. But they have no corruption in Children Life Fund, but there are reported cases of fraud at the fraud squad. So could you imagine if 13 cases of fraud from a fund that is meant to help children in that destitution is no corruption to Mr. Fuad Khan? Could you imagine if there was corruption? Could you imagine? Minister who will tell you there was no cocaine in nobody's stomach in no hospital. They'll look you in the face. Brea, Southwestern Peninsula, Trinidad and Tobago. This kind of conduct comes to an end on the 8th of September. Because we've chosen wisely. We've chosen people of the best quality, but human frailties. There can be human failings in any society. But I give you the assurance that under my leadership, there would be no policy to fool the people and lie to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Decency will return to the office of the Prime Minister and to the named Minister of Government in Trinidad and Tobago. And you could take that to the and book it. Because you see, character matters. Character matters. Brea, I want to thank you very much for the warm welcome you've given our PNM candidate. Point 14, I want to thank you very much for the warm welcome you've given our candidate. And Faizabad, Southwestern Peninsula, the PNM is here. Keep hope alive. I want to ask you all, especially those of you who have not voted in the last election, step up and take responsibility. Do not leave your responsibility to others. Do not pretend you don't care because we know you care. You just couldn't be bothered and you are irresponsible if you leave the interests of your family and your children and your community to other people and saying that PNM win already. We want to win with your vote. We want to win with your responsibility. We want to know that you care, and we want to know that you are holding us accountable to manage your affairs. So tonight, thank you. Thank you very much. As we move on to other parts of the country, I want to hear from Brea. I want to hear from Point 14. On the night of September 7th, I want to hear once again that Brea and Point 14 are in the columns of the People's National Movement. And when you would have done, you would know that we are on the road to making Brea what Brea should be in the family of Trinidad and Tobago. And then we all say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall survive.
For the road.
My friends, words of hope, faith, and high expectations from our Prime Minister in waiting. Show your love one more time. Our chief servant, the leader of the People's National Movement, and our next Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Show your love one more time, ladies and gentlemen, with a lusty round of applause. My friends, as we close, let me remind you to make sure that your name is on the electoral list. You have until July 23rd to register. Please check the electoral list in your constituency and make sure your name is on the list so that on election day you would go to your polling station and you would vote solidly for the People's National Movement. My friends, we thank God Almighty for blessing us with fine weather this evening and for allowing us to have a wonderful meeting. We also thank you for coming out in your large numbers to show support for your candidates and the People's National Movement. We extend our gratitude to all our speakers led by our political leader. Let me also offer thanks to the Operations Committee led by the Operations Officer, Ms. Irene Hines. Let me also offer our sincere thanks to the Secretariat at Balize House, led by the General Secretary, Mr. Ashton, and everyone else who would have made a contribution to the meeting this evening. We thank you and appreciate your support. As we go to our homes, we trust that Almighty God will take us in safety. We thank you, we love you, and may Almighty God continue to bless us all. Good night.
Ready, 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 we're ready, we're ready, yeah, we're ready, 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 ready. Look how the sun now raising up, and the crowd now waking up.
Take your brothers to the polling station. Brothers, take your sisters to the polling station. Fathers, take your sons and daughters to the polling station. Mothers, take your daughters and your friends to the polling station. Neighbors, take your neighbors to the polling station. And come September 7th, let us as a people in Trinidad and Tobago take responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago.
Conversations with Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, on CNC3, Monday, 13th July from 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in.